As artists, we face a lot of obstacles along the way. And those obstacles can make us stronger, but they can also break us. And I faced so many situations in my own life where I felt close to giving up. But I kept going, and over time, I learned to shift my focus away from external outcomes and toward the things that I can actually control. And along the way, I discovered an ancient philosophy that I deeply resonated with and changed the way I deal with obstacles. And that is Stoicism. So I've learned a lot from the Stoics and realized that many of their ideas apply surprisingly well to the life of an artist. So in this video, I want to share what I've learned from the Stoics and the ideas that have had the biggest impact on me. Hey everyone, Mark here. This week's episode of Mindset of a Musician is about the philosophy that has become the backbone of many of the things I talk about on this channel, and that is Stoicism. So my introduction to Stoicism was The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. And that book led me to read almost all of his other work, from The Obstacle is the Way and Ego is the Enemy to his books on the four Stoic virtues. So these books had a big impact on the way I reflect, the way I look at the world, and most importantly, the way I look at myself. So naturally, that eventually led me to the original Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. And one of the things I love about the Stoics is that they were practitioners and not just theorists. So Stoicism is a philosophy that's not meant to stay inside a book. It's meant to be practiced in everyday life. That's why I think it has so much to teach us as artists. So let's start by talking about one of the biggest lessons I have learned, and that is focus on what you can control. My very first video on this channel was called The Process. And so far, I've been able to stick to that process and upload a new video every single week, despite not even reaching 100 subscribers after 8 months, after putting in all of this work, which would have drove me crazy back in the day. So something has changed. Now, I first came across the idea of the process and the obstacle is the way. It immediately resonated with me because at the time I was posting 3 reels a day, several stories, and just trying to keep up with social media. And I felt completely burned out and depleted. Why? Because I was too focused on everyone else. Every time I opened those apps, I compared myself to other people and checked how my reels were performing. How many views did I get? How many likes? Did I gain any followers? So eventually, I lost the joy and the purpose behind what I was doing. The process doesn't care about the outcome. It doesn't care about how many likes I get or how quickly my following grows. It only cares about what I can control. So I can control what I film and record. I can control the quality of my work. I can control my intention. I can control how consistently I upload, work on songs, my voice, my instrument. And most importantly, I can control whether I show up and do the work. What I can't control is whether people like it or hate it, whether they follow me, whether they share it, or if people get hyped on a gig. So why should I let those things interfere with my mission? The moment I do that, my focus shifts from what's within my control to what's outside of it. Marcus Aurelius writes about this idea in Meditations 8:33, and I put it in my own words. Our responsibility is to do each action as well as we can. External circumstances may interfere with the outcome, but they don't have to stop us from acting well. So when I release a song, upload a video or play a show, and I know that I've done the best I could, I should be content with that. I've done my part. The work has done its duty. Full stop. What happens next is no longer in my hands. And that's one of the central ideas I've taken from Stoicism. Focus your energy on what you can control and learn to let go of what you can't. It's incredibly difficult to internalize that and truly live by it. I certainly haven't mastered it. but keeping it in mind every single day has certainly changed the way I approach my work as an artist. I'm 100% guilty of this. I mean, I'm kind of a people pleaser paired with a good amount of imposter syndrome. Not exactly the best starting point for being confident in your own work. That's why I'm actually very grateful that my brother, who I'm in a band with, is quite different from me. Because he's not afraid to speak his mind or fight for his ideas. He's also very focused on his own creative vision rather than constantly thinking about what the audience might think. So I really respect him for that, and I've learned a lot about myself and from him over the years. So we want the music we write and release to be as honest and authentic as possible. Because the moment I start looking for validation for my creative work, I'm giving other people the control over how I feel about it. And of course, validation feels good. It strokes our ego, but it should never become the reason why we create. I still vividly remember the shows where nobody came up to us afterwards and said, "Great show, man, loved it." I would immediately start questioning like everything. My voice, my guitar playing, our songs, or whether we'd ever make it as a band. But then, a few days later, I would listen back to the recording of the concert and realize, we actually played a great show. What else could we have done? Nothing, because we did our best. The same thing can happen when we share something on social media. If you can post a reel, upload a video, or share something you've created without immediately checking the numbers, you're already practicing this idea. And that doesn't mean feedback or statistics are useless. They can help us learn and improve, but they shouldn't determine how we feel about ourselves and the work we've created. Because again, we can control what we share. We can't control how people respond to it. So stop chasing validation. Focus on your output and not your outcome. So whether you believe in determinism or not, the Stoics had a strong belief in fate. And fighting against what has happened or what might happen in the future only wastes energy. As artists, there are so many things we have to deal with emotionally. And very often they are connected with the expectations we set for ourselves. So when we're playing a concert, we're asking ourselves how many people will show up. When we are releasing a song, how many streams will it get? We're posting a video, how many views will it get? It's closely connected to what we've talked about in the previous chapters, but so far we've mostly talked about what happens before the outcome. At some point, we have to face the result. Of course, that doesn't mean we should completely ignore numbers, streams, comments, or feedback. We can look at them, learn from them, and adjust what we do in the future. And at a concert, there's no hiding from the outcome anyway. The moment you step on stage, you will see how many people showed up. If the room is packed or you get 1 million streams, great. But that is usually not what we're afraid of. We are afraid of disappointment. So let's bring Stoicism into that moment. Imagine only one person showed up at your concert. You basically have two choices. The first choice, you can focus on your disappointed expectations, get frustrated, and carry that frustration with you onto the stage. Or, second, you could accept the situation for what it is. You can appreciate that this one person showed up and chose to spend their limited lifetime watching you perform. And then you can give that person the best performance you're capable of giving. The situation hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. And that's what I found so powerful about Amor, Fati. When we learn not only to accept what happens, but to embrace it, we can sometimes find meaning even in incredibly difficult experiences. Looking back, my panic attack and the months that followed were really difficult and challenging for me. Of course, I wouldn't have chosen to go through that, but today I'm very grateful for everything that I've learned because of it. And that's how I try to think about the unforeseen things that happen in my life. Instead of wasting energy wishing they had happened differently, I ask myself, what can I do with what happened? Accepting what we can't change takes away so much of the pressure created by our expectations. It frees the mind from constantly thinking about what could have happened, and brings our attention back to what we can do now, back to the process. The Stoics thought a lot about mortality and how being aware of it should affect the way we live in the here and now. Memento Mori, remember that you must die. It is something we've become increasingly uncomfortable talking or even thinking about in our Western culture. But in the end, it is something every single one of us has to face someday, without exception. And this isn't supposed to be a depressing reminder, quite the opposite. It is supposed to remind us how valuable and limited our lifetime really is, and make us question how we spend or waste it. So the next time you get caught up wondering why that reel didn't perform well, or you've spent an hour doom scrolling, think about your mortality. It probably won't take long to realize what really matters and what doesn't. That's also something that helped me whenever motivation is gone. I remind myself of how limited my lifetime really is. And suddenly, spending another hour mindlessly scrolling on my phone doesn't seem that appealing to me anymore. But writing a song does, working out does, going for a run does, going outside and experiencing nature does, working on these videos does, playing guitar does. Our time is limited, so stop waiting and start creating. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to dive deeper into topics like this, feel free to join me in my Mindset Monday newsletter. Link is in the description. And now let me know in the comments what you think about Stoicism. I'm looking forward to read your comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.